Hello friends, I'm Nukebrush, and today we are going to make automated weapon platform, the Sentry.
Time to go nuclear.
These models came to me already printed. Again, a trio of weapon platforms in this channel. This time, these are shooting platforms, not rocket systems. But like last time, I came up with three fundamentally different camouflage schemes to emphasize the uniqueness and diversity of this set. At the same time, I also came up with something unifying, so as not to separate the general concept too much. What came of this, you will find out a little later. In the meantime, let's get down to assembly and priming. For ease of painting, I did not glue the weapons to the body parts, so there was particularly no assembly, just a few magnets to the hulls and platforms. For priming, I used Grey Nitro Primer Mr. Supercell 1000. This is an excellent primer, which not only creates a reliable base for following painting, but also helps to identify painting defects or assembly and grinding errors. In this case, there were no such discrepancies. That's why I did not have to send them reprime models, so we can safely move on to applying shadows. As usual, I apply shadows to the platforms using brown primer paint. This is, so to speak, the rusty metal base of our weapon platforms, into which I paint all the lower parts of our models, including the guns themselves. In addition, even a thin layer of brown primer paint acts as additional layer of primer before applying camouflage. That is, it protects the sentries from wear even more reliably. +1 to armor never hurts. So, camouflage. For the platform with laser cannons, I chose disc camouflage, a historical German ambush disc camo. This is a common 3-color camouflage, the idea of which is to apply circles of green and brown colors on a dark yellow base. The base color is thus a sandy paint primer, and I make highlights with Decals paint. The camouflage itself can be done in different ways. For example, you can use a ready-made metal stencil, or make soft mask stencils yourself, which is what I did. To simplify the work, I used a special device for cutting circles in masking tape. This is how it works. We stick the masking tape on the work surface. Then we set the required diameter of the cut hole on the size scale. And then the real fun begins. Spin the wheel of fortune. By changing the diameter of the circles and the application, we create a unique pattern of our mask, and therefore camouflage. When we are more or less satisfied with the result and quantity, we relocate our masks to a more convenient work surface. In the meantime, our base paint has already dried, and we can safely place our masks and begin applying the first batch of green disc camouflage. Why the first batch? Due to the complex surface of the sentry's elements, achieve fully satisfactory result from the first try is simply impossible. So the compromise is to remove and reapply the stencils to new places. When the paint has dried, we remove the stencil and assemble the model to see what we achieved. If there are not enough green circles, we repeat the procedure. When we are finally satisfied with the result, we move on to the next color. Since I adhere to the traditional color scheme, I took the red-brown paint Goldhammer, which perfectly shades both the sand and green colors of our camo. The principle of applying brown discs is the same as green ones. Stick on a mask, apply paint, wait for it to dry, remove the mask, look at the result, and if you do not quite like it, repeat the procedure. Sooner or later we will come to an agreement with ourselves about the sufficiency of the disc and the overall completeness of the camouflage in the model. And when this happens, we can move on to the next sentry. With a platform with heavy bolters, I decided to use a wave-type camouflage. It is also quite simple, as it consists of 3 colors: a sand base, the first light green wave, and the second wave of a darker olive color. As with the disc camouflage, firstly we prepared sand base using sand paint primer. Highlights on the very top and protruding parts are also applied using lighter shade of Nukebrush paint. Now it's time to make a mask for the camo scheme. As in the video with the rocket platforms, I use a metal stencil to cut out the blanks for the mask. First, stick the masking tape on our base, then carefully cut out the required shape with a scalpel with a fresh blade. Nothing complicated, the main thing is to be careful and take your time. After we have received the required number of stencils, we relocate them on a more convenient working surface. And then, as usual, we stick masks on the model and apply the next layer of camo paint. For a lighter green color, I use resin paint, which goes well with our sand base. The technology for applying the first camouflage is not complicated, a thin layer of paint and subsequent highlights. When the paint has dried, remove the mask and examine the result. If we are satisfied with everything, we stick new masks and apply the second camouflage. As I already said, this is dark olive color, which attracts attention and, on the other hand, perfectly harmonizes previous lighter colors into a single camouflage pattern. When we are sure that everything is going on as planned, we can move on to the next sentry. The assault cannon's platform will get the most complex camouflage of all three, the triangular one. In addition to the unusual geometric pattern, you could also use the 4 colors instead of 3, and the technology for applying the camouflage is also slightly different. So it won't be easy, but it will be interesting. I paint the base with light grey paint, which will give the first lightest base for our weapon platform. Now it's time to cut out the triangular and polygonal figures for our camo scheme. As with the wave camouflage, I use a metal stencil to cut out the masks. It's simple, choose the desired triangular size, stick on the masking tape, cut out the desired pattern with scalpel. Repeat until you get the desired number of figures or until you get bored. The chosen color scheme is blue with shades of grey, and as a result the final camouflage could be named as night, winter, urban, whatever you like. So after the first paint has dried and the first camo mask have been glued, we can apply the second color. In our case, this is a pleasant blue-grey paint. We apply it in one layer, but covering the entire base color and of course our geometric pattern. When everything has dried, we glue a new layer of masks and apply the next color. Now this is fairly bright cyan paint. It will set the general tone of our winter, urban or night camo. The final layer for this model is a rather dull ocean grey color. Its task is to muffle the brightness of the previous cyan color, as well as to give completeness to our geometric pattern. Once the paints have dried and the mask have been removed, we can enjoy the well done job, correct any mistakes, and move on to the next step. The metal elements of the weapon platforms are represented by various gun parts, lifting mechanisms, and other small details. I paint the largest parts with a regular brush using black metal paint. This is a fairly dark and dull metallic, which is ideal as a base for highlights, for example using dry brush with silver paint or polished metal pigment. I paint small metal elements with lighter and brighter metallics, steel and silver, which also will be highlighted after the washes stage. I paint some elements of the weapons with copper paint to create some contrast in relation to other white metallics. And yes, the copper parts will also be highlighted later with brighter paints such as brass and silver. Once the metal parts are finished, we can move on to other decorative elements, for example rubber rings around the optical devices. The details are ready, it's time for decals. Before applying decals to our sentries, as usual I cover the models with glossy varnish. So our decals, there are not many of them, only 3 for each turret, will stick to the surface better. I use microset and microsol modeling chemistry for installing and welding decals. Nothing complicated, just take your time, try to be careful, persistent and consistent, and everything will turn out as it should. When the decals have dried and begin to show their shine, it's necessary to apply matting chemistry to them to hide the excess brightness. At the end, we apply a layer of matte varnish to protect our work. Now let's give our weapon platform some personality. I think automated turrets are underrepresented in movies. To me, the most memorable and reminiscent were probably the automatic weapon platforms from the famous movie Aliens. These silent and nameless guardians did their job in full by providing reliable, although short-lived protection to the main characters of the movie, and possibly saved their lives. Therefore, I decided to give my weapon platforms appropriate names. Well, meet the laser cannons Hicks, heavy bolters Newt, and assault cannons Ripley. I apply the names with a regular brush and white paint, using the freehand method, imitating stencil application. We take our time, work carefully, and then the result will please us. There are plenty of optical elements on our gun platforms: reflexes, laser designators, and various cameras for targeting systems on the body and on the gun barrels themselves. This time I decided to use a combined system for painting the optics, painting and using holographic film. The basis for our optics is a dark background, in my case black paint. On top of the base color we begin to create a lens effect, in which the lower part of the optical device will be the brightest. Then apply various shades of dark and light blue colors mixed with black and white paint, layer by layer. Large number of thin layers of paint and smooth transitions between colors are guarantee of an acceptable result. For other optical devices, I use shades of red and green paint, while the principle of applying colors to create the lens effect does not change. The final shine of our optical elements will be given by various paint varnishes, from light green to bright red. And for square reflexes, as usual, I used holographic film installed in place with acrylic glue. When all is set, we can create volume and shadow with washes. As usual, I use enamel washes. For each of the sentries, I use washes of different shades, since the colors of our models are fundamentally different. For the triangular camouflage, I took modeling chemical with a bluish tone, namely blue wash with panzer gray, which will perfectly fit into overall color scheme of our Ripley. For the laser turret, I use dark brown wash with German dark yellow, which are generally quite standard for such a color scheme. As usual, enamel washes spread well over the surface, flowing into the recesses and enhancing the shadows around protruding objects. Finally, for the green turret with heavy bolters, light brown US modern vehicles wash is perfect. Nothing complicated as always, just perseverance and accuracy. And remember that mistakes can be easily corrected with a brush and enamel thinner. Wear effects and chipping are the indicators of intensive use and also reliability of our weapon platforms. So we take a sponge and, using light paint, randomly apply small dots to those places that may suffer due to the wear and damage. As in the case of washes, the choice of paint directly depends on the color of the turret. For laser guns and heavy bolters Newt, I use a light shade of Nukebrush. As for assault cannon, I took white paint. When small chips and clouds of chips are applied to the surfaces of our models and we are satisfied with the result, we take a brush and begin to organize our chaotic imitations of damage. Just a little patience, and all moving elements and directly rotating platforms, all corners and other protruding elements, as well as ventilation grills and of course the weapons of our turrets, will be covered with a web of chipped paint. When the light chips are done, it is time to increase the damage. We take dark brown paint and try to imitate the effect of the rust formed as a result of a deep chip of paint down to the metal. When everything is ready, we move on to the last stage of our work of the turrets, weathering. This time I didn't use dust effects, but rust, grease, fuel and oil drips, all of this will be present on our shooting platforms. Again I use a sponge to imitate rust effects, but now on the metal elements of the turrets. After that I return to the brush and create various streaks around the exhaust systems, moving elements and the gun barrels themselves. Well, the last layer of varnish remains and our sentries are ready to repel an attack from any alien. If you liked the video and want to see more models like this, feel free to comment, like and share it. And also subscribe to the channel. Good luck with your models and see you soon!